Thank you for joining us and welcome to our year-end Reporters Roundtable, where we'll take a look at the top issues of the year. And not only talk about those issues, but also talk about how it is that the press covered those issues throughout the year as well. Joining me is Noah Bombard from the Telegram and Gazette. Walter Bird is with us from Worcester Magazine, and of course everybody knows Andy Lacombe from News TV3 here at Charter TV3. Noah, let me say, that was like the longest introduction for Charter TV3 ever. Sorry about that. I'll start with you now because of that. One of the big stories, of course, Andy, is the one that now has just come to the forefront, sadly, over the last few days, and that is the story of what happened in Newtown, Connecticut. But it brings up a story that is a perennial, and that is about gun violence in the United States, and certainly this year. We have had stories, whether it's the Sikh temple in Minnesota, whether it is Aurora, Colorado, and now it does seem as if the president is going to be taking some action. It's also a story that, although it is a national story, it's a very local story for everyone who follows it. And I know, just from your experience and what you do here as the news director at Charter TV3, tell us a little bit about how maybe you localize the story.
Well, I mean, certainly every parent who dropped their kids off to school today, or was picking their, or any day that followed the shooting, probably felt a little differently about dropping their son or daughter off. We covered it, locally in terms of, what do schools policies, what do schools do, what do parents now think about their son or daughter's school. And I think for most part, everyone thinks their schools are safe and should think their schools are safe. This is an unthinkable event that happened in Connecticut. For me, my aunt and my cousin is a third grader in that school in Sandy
my
Hook.
goodness.
And I saw my aunt and my cousin on the nightly news, pictured over and over again the day it happened. So for me, it truly hit home. Right. It took me a little while to realize that my cousin goes to that school, and then certainly we tried to track everyone down. Everyone's fine, but for me, it was a story that truly hit home, and I think it hits home for anyone.
For everybody, anybody who has kids,
Sure.
And it really was Anytown, USA, and I think that's part of it, right? No, I mean, that is a story where this was Newtown, Connecticut, but that was anywhere USA.
It was. I think that's, and you hear that question raised every time something like this happens. Why here? Why would it happen here? And I think that's the frightening part of the story, is it really could happen anywhere. And a lot of times we looked at, Colorado, out west and stuff. This is Connecticut, and for Worcester, that's not that far away. So I think that's part of the frightening part. The other part is, we're still learning the details about why this happened, about who this kid was who perpetrated this crime. And there's a lot of questions yet to be answered, and I think that's the really frightening part, is we try to find a solution. You mentioned the president wants to do something. Everybody wants to do something. Is there a law we could pass that'll prevent this from ever happening again? Is there a security measure at a school that can be taken that'll prevent this from ever happening again? And I think that's where it gets a little frightening, because we have to face the fact that, we will try to do something. I think as a society we have this need to act, to do something to prevent this from happening again. But then the lingering question, what can we really do? Look at how schools have changed since Columbine. I mean, you used to be able to just walk right in your public school, and from what I understand from the preliminary results, the doors were locked at the school. He blasted his way through.
They really followed everything that is sort of the post-Columbine. The teachers, followed the protocol, shut the doors, in some cases barricade the doors, hide the kids as best you can, and yet we still had this unthinkable tragedy. Walter, when you see it locally, though, as has been brought up now, I mean, there's the safety, school safety, but school safety right here in Worcester as well. We had an incident recently with a 15-year-old young man, an altercation trying to get back into the school, pushes down, an assistant principal.
We had a couple of incidents, actually. You had an incident on a Friday, you had an incident on a Monday, and then you had an incident on a Wednesday where a kid inside, that same kid that was involved in the Friday incident, allegedly, knocks down an assistant principal and ends up getting arrested. So let's make sure that we don't mention Sandy Hook massacre and North High, okay, together, so that people think that we're trying to say that that could happen here. But I think Noah put it best. It can happen anywhere, and violence is violence, and it can escalate easily. It's something that Police Chief Jem has said, that these things can escalate easily. There is a safety issue, but I think that more than that, I think if anything comes out of Sandy Hook, and I think it will, I think a lot will, I think there'll be a spotlight more, not just on gun violence, but on violence in general, on mental health, on why these things are happening, and why the situation happened in North High. Kids got involved when they shouldn't have. Emotions ran high before you knew it. And we don't know all the facts there.
And no, all those stories are here. I mean, all those stories
Yeah,
are
they
right. Mental illness, the safety of our school kids.
And I think Walter's right, to try to, you can't really connect these two, although the one common thread, of course, is school safety in general. And of course, after the incident at North High, we heard, requests for, metal detectors, things of that nature. Of course, even in that case, this was a fight that occurred outside the school, so that wouldn't necessarily have prevented that. But the Sandy Hook incident is certainly going to put extra pressure on this idea of school safety and what can we do.
But it's right back really to what you said, and I want to move on to quickly grab some politics here as well, which is another big story, of course, here for the last year.
Sure.
Yeah, but when it comes to that school safety, again, something happens, our immediate reaction is, what can we do? Metal detectors. What can we do? What kind of legislation can we make? Let's talk a little bit about the politics, though, Andy, of the past year, because this was a hot race, particularly for Senate in Massachusetts, and Scott Brown had a lot of supporters here in central Massachusetts. Elizabeth Warren in the city, that campaign to me for the Democrats really came alive. They had a tremendous get out the vote effort.
Yeah, I think what you saw Scott Brown still winning in central Massachusetts, but not by the margin he won by in the special election against the Attorney General. But you saw a focus on central Massachusetts, which I'm sure for all of us was pretty exciting to see Senator Brown here maybe a couple of times a week, Elizabeth Warren and her people here a couple of times a week. And it was a race that was marked, there's always endorsements, but it seemed like the more interesting endorsements in this race happening in Worcester. Bill Bradley, Rhodes Scholar, NBA basketball player. Bob Cousy comes out of Florida or his house to help Scott Brown. There was some really interesting tie-ins to this race, and ultimately, Elizabeth Warren wins because she does a little bit better in central Massachusetts than her predecessors did.
Yeah, and now, of course, if Scott Brown, because as I know that you had made this point right before we went on the air, hey, some of these stories that we're talking about as the big stories of 2012 are going to be the big stories of 2013.
Yes.
Scott Brown running for Senate may be a big story of 2013.
Running for Senate, running for governor, running for whatever. I mean, a lot of what happened in 2012, and we talked about this before, it wasn't like huge pivotal moments, with the exception of course, Sandy Hook. But there are things that kind of germinated. And so we saw Scott Brown lose this election. What does that mean? President Obama's reelected. Is the governor going to move up to a different position? Does that advance Tim Murray? I mean, there's a real, possible musical chairs going on here that hasn't settled down yet. And where Scott Brown lands in that, we don't know yet. Could be anywhere.
And Walter, as Noah just brought up, the lieutenant governor. Is he going to run for governor? What is his political future?
I think most people, I think the smart money is on a run. You speak to his campaign people recently, as I did. They're still mulling it over. It's a family decision. I'm not sure that that's really what it is. I think part of the decision may be, when I do announce that I run, how much of some of the issues that dogged me before are going to come up, and how am I going to respond to them, and how significant will they be raised by my opponent? I think Tim Murray, we all can agree, wants to be governor. Tim Murray wants to be in that office. I think that the answer will be yes. I think it will come sooner than later, and it's going to make for, again, more interesting times here in Worcester.
Well, I'm interested on your take about the issues that could dog him now.
Let's face it. If I was going to run against Tim Murray, I would think that my advisors would say, first of all, we got to go back to that accident. We got to raise the issue with Charlie, and please forgive me that I forgot his last name. Help me. The phone calls.
Right, the Housing Authority.
Yes.
Thank you. The Housing Authority.
Yes.
Multiple phone calls. We help each other out. This is good. The Housing Authority and the car accident are the two big things that dog Tim Murray, but Tim Murray also has a very down-home kind of appeal. He's an aw shucks kind of guy. He has put his name to a lot of significant achievements here in Worcester that he can tout. Transportation, he can certainly tout that. So it would be really, from our point of view as reporters, it would be a dream to have Tim Murray run for governor because it's right in our backyard. So I'm hoping he says yes, and I do think the smart money is on yes.
Is it a run?
And Central Mass, I think, certainly wants him to run. I mean, certainly he's got the vote of Worcester, and even though Central Mass tends to be a very strong Republican area, he's got a lot of support there. In addition, you know, he's the kind of guy who can get some Republican votes as well. I think the thing with his, you know, the issues that dog him, there's nothing really concrete with them either. There's no like really bad thing that's stuck to Tim Murray. There's some questions, you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if there's another shoot a job from a grand jury.
Yeah,
on,
but is the problem
authority,
for him, Hank, guys? Is it that more people outside of Worcester know him from the accident and the housing authority than know him for being a solid politician in central Massachusetts and the work he's done for commuter rail? And
he's that guy from Worcester.
Even as lieutenant governor, what's the name recognition?
Right.
Yeah, interesting. We'll talk more about that and many other issues straight ahead, right here on the Hank Stolz Experience. McLaughlin.
Hi, I'm Dale LePage.
And I'm Roberta Mandela from Charter TV3's new entertainment show, WooTube.
Be sure to tune in every week to WooTube for local music and comedy videos.
It's not a quick, fast, or far. It's the journey, not the car. Make war, no more. Tell me.
Interviews with local restaurant and club owners and upcoming events in your area.
It's your music videos and your comedy videos. It's all about you. WooTube on Charter TV3.
I'm Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray, and I'm proud to partner with Charter Communications with our pledge to help raise awareness that bullying should not be tolerated. From local school students, here is our message.
Words can hurt. Keep in mind to be kind. Don't be mean behind the screen.
We need to foster safe environments for students in their schools and communities. Join the anti-bully crusade and take a stand to lend a hand. Don't be a bully.
Presented by the law offices of Joseph J. Kurglia.
I'm Al Gordon, Chief of Police for the town of Westboro, with an important safety message. Driving can be a stressful experience, but it's important to avoid engaging in aggressive driving behaviors such as speeding, running red lights, quick lane changing, and failure to yield. An aggressive driving act can lead to and escalate into road rage. Leave yourself enough time instead of trying to make good time. This safe driving message is brought to you by the Central Mass Police Chiefs Association and Charter Communications.
Remember when Pleasant Street only went one way from Linden Street down to Main? And that was an issue for our neighborhood and for the businesses along Pleasant Street that we worked hard to change through the city council.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and then looking at the development in Worcester as a place where we can make sure that we're offering good, strong jobs and opportunity for our people.
Coverage from Central Massachusetts for Central Massachusetts.
Employees who haven't received the flu vaccine must start wearing surgical masks.
She tried to grab hold of a passing freight train and fell. 40 to 50 teenagers surrounded 4 officers.
A would-be robber is stopped when the guy he's trying to rob turns out to be the Worcester County District Attorney.
Reporters in the field and an in-depth local forecast. Worcester News Tonight on Charter TV3.
We're talking about the issues for the year end. It's our Reporters Roundtable. And I want to bring it a local. Some of the issues that we've been talking about are national, and then they are local as well. But Walter, let me start with you. When we take a look at some of the issues, such as City Square, I mean, that's a Worcester issue, but boy, that's an issue that really does affect this city. And I think that it affects, you know, to go back to something that was kind of a cliche of a few years ago, the psyche of the city. You know, we're going to open things up, we're going to make things happen. And now, finally, here it is. You know, we're going to have Front Street connected. We're going to have the city connected, the downtown that people have been talking about for. It's no longer about the tipping point.
Right.
That's been reached. We're there.
And the lieutenant governor, the grand marshal's going to get to walk right down Front Street and right through. So on New Year's Eve. So without a doubt, if we're talking issues that were significant this year and that the media certainly spent a lot of time with, City Square is right there at the top of the list. Tying in a little bit with construction in general in the city that has boomed over the past 3 or 4 years. So City Square there is an optimism. It was lying dormant for years. It's almost like you went to sleep and woke up one day and, oh my goodness, something's happening. And all of a sudden, once it started happening, it just started happening. And now we're talking about all sorts of things. Hotels are now coming into the mix. Slots are coming into the mix. You know, a whole number of things have come up because of City Square, urban design.
And the funny thing is, and I'll jump to you, Noah, is Walter is right about this, is if all of a sudden it sprung forward. To me, the city manager has kind of kept that course for 10 years. Take all the brickbats, keep your head down, keep your eye on the prize, and eventually to the person on the outside, oh, wow, look, it all happened.
Right, I think that was the perception. I think in reality that this has been churning along, you know, right along the whole time. And there's, you know, again, it's one of those events, there's not so much a pivotal point. I mean, if there were a pivotal point, it was probably the taking down of the veil there in, was it June or July, that opened up kind of your view of Front Street. The real pivotal point will be December 31st, when you're actually able to, for the first time, walk or drive down Front Street since the late 60s or so. So that'll be pivotal. It has been moving along. It's a news story in slow motion. Yeah. You know, it really is. You know, and there's so many aspects of it. I mean, you look at the opening of the skating rink, you know, which is something that you know, a lot of us in the press and on the editorial pages kind of derided a little bit when it was first proposed years ago. I know I was at Worcester Magazine back then, and we kind of, you know, were skeptical. The telegrams were skeptical.
And then it became a joke because you had it's the performance oval. No, it's the ice skating rink, and there's no ice out.
But you know what? Despite all of the criticisms, you know, I walked across the town common last Friday, as I do a lot, and you know, there's Christmas music playing. There's people skating,
and there are people skating in the afternoon. And you know what? That was what they did right about that, Andy. If it took longer than usual, or it took longer than it should have, perhaps, but then make sure you get it right, and they did.
They did. It's incredible to see it, actually. You know, I was going to have T-shirts made up. Like, I was there when the MOA was signed for the City Square. And you and I and a couple others, we could pop this champagne. When, you know, finally to see tangible things happening after so many years. And I think with City Square and then the Oval as well, City Square, I think, was flying along, and maybe everybody got ahead of it. Of where it should have been, and then of course the real estate market and a lot of things tanked, and it maybe has taken as long as it probably would have had normally, or maybe a little longer. But we in the media, I think we had it moving along really, really fast.
You announced it. Tomorrow, let's see it. Let's see the wrecking ball come
theater,
in, and let's have it all be here.
But you know, you kind of wonder though if this is kind of the way it's supposed to be. Slow growth.
Sure.
You know. Not a huge boom, you know, but the idea is hopefully things will continue to move along. I mean, the reality is right now we've got, you know, Unum moving in there, we've got a cancer center. There isn't really that full plan that we saw originally of all of these shops and everything.
That's important. It has changed.
But it hasn't changed. But the room is there. Yeah. And so I think the pivotal battle that we're going to see in 2013 and going forward is this discussion we've had before about, you know, this, you know, bringing in the upscale versus you're a block from the poorest section in the city, and how do you maintain those two? How do you make it so people in Maine South can use the library, and you know, maybe you've got a, you know, God forbid, a Banana Republic store or something downtown.
Right,
you know?
but I think the city manager fought that battle even when he started talking a couple years ago about market rate housing and the fact that we need more of that everything doesn't just have to be, you know, a certain or cater to a certain part of it, that it's got to be this mix, Andy. I mean, that you need that doctor and that lawyer who want to hop on 290 to get to the Pike, to get to Boston, and, you know, they go into the old Chevalier building or whatever that the case may be, that he really sees, it seems to me, the big picture. And by the way, don't think that every time any of us have ever made a joke about the skating ring or anything else that he hasn't marked down somewhere to remind us of it on the day that it all comes to pass. But he has been, and I have to give him kudos, I mean, he is a big picture guy who also works out the details.
Yeah, and that's the big thing for the city, is getting people to come downtown, stay downtown, live downtown or in the downtown area, and it's been that way for as long as Mike O'Brien's been the city manager. But you drive by on 290 and you see new buildings going up and you see a crane overhead. And for me, I went to Providence College years ago before they had their little renaissance downtown, and that's when we started to start seeing things build up. Right. So perception becomes, hey, Worcester is really getting things done now, and it could lead to some really big things.
That image, I think, is really important because that perception that nothing was going on. A lot of the times when people thought nothing was going on, they were inside that old mall, tearing it apart.
Right.
And
that crane is a big morale boost.
It really is.
It's funny to say, but it is.
No, it really was. I mean, people they wanted the wrecking ball so bad.
They wanted to see it because the city had been saying for so long, we're a city on the move. Well, now you can finally see the city's on the move.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, just because I wanted to talk a little bit about sports in our next segment as well as we go over some of the year-end stories, but. For each of you, Noah, begin with you because the Telegram and Gazette had to move to the new building. Media has undergone some changes, in this year as well. Start with what's been happening with you.
Well, we of course moved across the Common from our old place on Franklin Avenue to Front Street. I mean, that was a historic moment for us. I mean, we've been in that building for more than 100 years. If you look at old pictures of it, it's actually, the old building was actually 4 buildings that had been cobbled together with a facade put on over it. So it was significant. The old building was built for back in the day when there were just, hundreds and hundreds of people, working there. And of course, the media has downsized in the last few decades, and we're in a tighter space now, but also a much more modern space. I mean, you walk into our newsroom now, and it's a modern office, it's a modern newsroom. As opposed to our old place, which had a lot of character and feel to it. But this feels a lot kind of leaner, meaner, a lot more technologically advanced, and that's just been great for us.
Yeah. You've had some changes at Worcester Magazine as well?
Yeah, we have. We certainly have. Brought on a new publisher. We brought on a new editor. Noah said it best. Also, the business is downsizing. It is changing. There's not as many of us as there used to be. My business card says senior reporter. Only reporter. Only reporter. That's what it should say. But, Worcester Mag has certainly gone through, and Noah has been there. It seems like so many paths in Worcester cross through Worcester Mag, and it's still there. And I think that, we're trying to kind of move in a bold new direction. And
that is part
fun.
of it, too, though, Andy. I mean, it's a tight-knit community.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to the media. Although we do have a new player with Go Local Worcester. More and more online keeps popping up as well, and of course, things keep happening here at Charter TV3.
Yeah, I mean, we have new people coming in and going. I mean, my business card could say a lot of things too, because I run this camera sometimes at night at 10 o'clock to set it up for our 10 o'clock newscast. But I think everyone tries to evolve with it, and a lot of it is going to the web and the social media and reporting as best you can on social media as well, because you can't just throw things out there and be attached to your name and stuff like that.
No, so that's interesting. We could do a whole show just we could do a whole show just on that, and the radio landscape changing with Jim Polito leaving, and with more and more millions of people coming to listen to WCRN in the morning. We will talk about sports straight ahead on Charter TV3, the Hank Stolz Experience.
Give the gift of health from the YMCA of Central Mass. With the Y Special 3G membership, everyone gets connected, gets fit, gets involved. Children make new friends and learn new skills. Adults are getting fit using the latest state-of-the-art fitness equipment, enjoying basketball, swimming, racquetball, rock climbing, exercise classes. A 3G membership, every new member gets a free 1-hour orientation with a personal trainer. So what are you waiting for? Give the gift of health to a loved one or to yourself. Call your local YMCA of Central Massachusetts branch or YMCA of CM.org.
The Senior Focus on Charter TV3 is hosted by attorney Nick Kalsas, a leading Massachusetts authority on elder law and related legal issues. The Senior Focus is devoted to the needs of older and disabled individuals, their caregivers, and their families. Topics include estate and Medicaid planning, long-term care planning, estate administration, planning for people with disabilities, and more. Watch The Senior Focus every Wednesday at 2 p.m. on Charter TV3.
Coverage from Central Massachusetts for Central Massachusetts.
Employees who haven't received the flu vaccine must start wearing surgical masks.
She tried to grab hold of a passing freight train and fell. 40 to 50 teenagers surrounded 4 officers.
A would-be robber is stopped when the guy he's trying to rob turns out to be the Worcester County District Attorney.
Reporters in the field and an in-depth local forecast. Worcester News Tonight on Charter TV3.
Charter TV3 and UMass Memorial Healthcare have teamed up to bring you the latest news and trends in healthcare. Health Watch, presented by UMass Memorial Healthcare, brings you the healthcare topics that are important to you. From stroke prevention to allergies, skincare to sports injury prevention, and nutrition to pregnancy, Health Watch and UMass Memorial Healthcare informs you on the issues that affect you on a daily basis. Health Watch on Charter TV3. For extended interviews with UMass Memorial Healthcare experts, log on to our website.
Worcester Tornadoes. Andy, what happened?
Well, what did happen, Hank? I think it was many years in the process. People could argue that Jose Canseco happened, and that was the signee that finally was the death knell on the Tornadoes.
When that was first done, everybody said, "Oh, this shows that the Tornadoes have all this life in them, and they're making a good move."
Guilty. You know, I was at the press conference, and they had Todd, their owner, and they had some of his other ownership group there from Baltimore, and they seemed like they had it all together. But Jose Canseco didn't bring crowds in like they thought he would. They didn't have him do anything in the community to try to draw more interest, which, by his own admission, we asked him at the press conference. No, that wasn't part of it. He's just here to play baseball. So it's not like he didn't mishandle some things. But yeah, I mean, it was years in the making, and ultimately not paying your bills to your vendors and your sponsors is
we can kind of catch up with you, because we thought that Jose Canseco was going to be hitting that home run ball out to Worcester Airport. That's how far we thought that was going to go.
He didn't end up playing very many games, though.
No.
I mean, that was the thing.
Right. His first batting practice, when he had a great press conference, and then we go to the batting practice, and he couldn't get the ball in the park against a college pitcher, and then I said, all right, we have a problem.
We did find that he could play the field, though, because he did pick up an assistant district attorney. So.
Boy, I wish that was the line we were going out on. But let's go out on a story that is going to be a story for 2013, because that's kind of where we began, that these stories, many of these are going to carry over to 2013, and one of those is certainly going to be somebody who could be a champion of the world, Edwin Rodriguez.
I think Edwin Rodriguez in 2013 gets a title shot. I mean, he is a small title holder now, minor title holder now, but I think he gets a title shot. Maybe not his first fight of the year, but maybe by June, July, he's in a title fight and has a shot to be an undefeated champion.
Walter, how exciting is that for the city?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it is his first fight of the year. That's his title shot.
Really?
So, we'll put maybe a little wager on it.
Put something on it.
We'll see.
I'll be happy either way.
It's extremely exciting. I mean, anyone who has met Edwin Rodriguez, Andy has certainly known him long. I mean, this is a good guy. This is a guy that loves this city. Got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, too. Wants to prove something to the city. So it's very exciting for the city. And I think Jose Rivera, obviously, for a long time, face of the city when it came to Boston. Edwin Rodriguez has a really good chance to take that baton and carry it.
Well, I'll tell you, we had some big sports stories. And Andy, I know that as you focus on, there's some people who really made it in the big leagues.
Yeah, great year in Major League Baseball. If you're talking about Brian LaHare, a city kid who broke through and played a full year, was a National League All-Star for the Cubs, played at Holy Name here in the city. And Timmy Collins, who was probably the sports story of the year last year, 5'5", youngest kid in the pros. He didn't get drafted, didn't get picked up anywhere in college, was going to be a construction worker. Gets signed by the Blue Jays, works his way into the big leagues. This year, he leads all relief pitchers in strikeouts.
That's a good story to go out on as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming by. Appreciate it. And thank you for being with us for our Reporters Roundtable, our year in review.